352 years, every generation inside the silo has been taught the same lesson. Don't question the pact, don't collect relics, don't ask about the world before the silo, and above all, don't become curious about the past. On the surface, those rules seem designed to control behavior. Break them, and the system punishes you. But Episode 2 quietly introduces a far more disturbing possibility. What if the founders were never trying to control what people do? What if they've been trying to control what people remember?
I'm afraid to tell you that I'm the reason she doesn't remember you.
Because once you start connecting Charlotte's story with Juliet's journey, a chilling pattern begins to emerge. Charlotte doesn't simply disappear from history. Her connection to the truth appears to disappear as well. And if that's not an accident, then the greatest weapon ever created inside the silo isn't the airlock, the judicial, or even the pact. It's memory itself. More specifically, the ability to erase it.
What memories to bring back and what to leave behind.
Think about the founders' problem for a moment. Imagine you've built a civilization that's meant to survive for centuries after the collapse of the outside world. You can create laws. You can build cameras. You can assign judges. You can even execute people who threaten stability. But none of those solutions actually solve the biggest danger. Every generation produces people who ask questions. Every generation discovers something they weren't supposed to see. And every generation passes knowledge to someone else. That's how revolutions begin. Not with violence, but with memory. One person remembers something. They tell another, then another. Eventually, a forgotten truth becomes impossible to erase. The founders would have understood this better than anyone, because history itself is built on shared memory. If they wanted the silo to survive for centuries, they couldn't simply control people's actions. They had to control the information that survived from one generation to the next. Now look at Charlotte through that lens. Episode 2 quietly suggests she knew something that placed her on a path remarkably similar to Juliet's. The exact nature of that knowledge remains deliberately unclear.
Memory is our internal biography, information that we've hopped up with meaning to tell us who we are.
But that's what makes it so interesting. The series isn't asking us to focus on what Charlotte discovered. It's asking us to notice what happened after she discovered it. Her story no longer follows the pattern we'd expect if she were simply another rule breaker. Instead, the possibility emerges that something much more unusual happened. Rather than eliminating the person, the system may have eliminated the dangerous knowledge.
What if your head injury is not because of the fire? Let me ask you something. Are you receiving a lot of medical attention right now?
If that's true, it represents an entirely different philosophy of control. Why create a martyr when you can erase the reason anyone would follow them? Here's where the puzzle becomes even more unsettling. Throughout the series, Juliet keeps rediscovering truths that other people uncovered before her. George finds clues. Allison finds clues. Holston follows Allison's trail. Juliet follows George's. Lucas inherits Bernard's knowledge. Each generation rebuilds the same puzzle from scattered fragments, because the complete picture never survives intact. That repeating cycle doesn't feel accidental anymore. It feels engineered, almost as though someone expects pieces of the truth to resurface, but has designed the system so that no single person keeps every piece long enough to expose the whole story. That raises a question the show quietly plants without answering. Why are relics treated as one of the greatest crimes inside the silo? They're just old objects, or at least that's how they're presented. But relics don't simply preserve history. They trigger memory. A photograph reminds someone that families once lived differently. A children's toy hints that the world before the silo wasn't the lifeless wasteland they've always imagined. A travel guide suggests there were oceans, cities, and cultures beyond these concrete walls. Individually, those objects seem harmless. Together, they rebuild a forgotten civilization. The founders may not fear the relics themselves. They may fear what happens inside the human mind when enough memories reconnect. And that's where Juliet becomes unlike anyone before her. She isn't dangerous because she's the smartest engineer or the bravest sheriff. She's dangerous because she refuses to let disconnected clues remain disconnected. Every mystery she solves leads her back to another forgotten memory, another erased piece of history, another person who tried to uncover the truth before her. She unknowingly reconstructs a timeline the system has spent centuries trying to keep broken. If Charlotte truly lost access to memories that threaten the founders' design, then Juliet isn't just repeating Charlotte's journey. She's approaching the same invisible line that Charlotte may have crossed years before.
He decides what people remember, what they don't remember.
But here's the possibility that changes everything. What if the founders never intended memory erasure to be punishment? What if it was preservation? Killing brilliant engineers, scientists, historians, and leaders would slowly weaken the population. Erasing only the dangerous knowledge allows the person to continue contributing to society while removing the single thing capable of destabilizing the silo. It's a horrifyingly efficient solution. The individual survives. The system survives. Only the truth disappears. If that theory is correct, then Episode 2 isn't simply revealing another mystery about Charlotte. It's quietly exposing the founders' greatest invention. They didn't build the perfect prison, they built the perfect reset button. Every time someone gets too close to understanding the real purpose of the silo, history doesn't repeat because people make the same mistakes. History repeats because someone ensures each generation starts with the same missing memories. And that brings us back to Juliet. She has already uncovered more secrets than almost anyone in Silo 18's history. The only question now is whether she'll reveal them before the system finds a way to make her forget, or whether this time, the chain of memory has grown too strong to erase forever. Now here's where this theory takes an even darker turn. Throughout the series, we've assumed the founders built the silo to preserve humanity after the world collapsed. But preserving humanity and preserving human memory are two completely different goals. In fact, those two goals can easily come into conflict. Memory gives people identity. It teaches them who they are, where they came from, and why they fight for a better future. But memory also creates anger, resentment, and rebellion. Entire revolutions begin because someone remembers that life used to be different. If the founders truly believed humanity could only survive through absolute stability, then memory itself becomes the greatest threat to that stability. Suddenly, every policy inside the silo starts making disturbing sense. History isn't erased because it lacks value. It's erased because history gives people something to compare their present against. The moment people realize they once had freedom, choice, and an entire world beyond these walls, the silo stops feeling like salvation and starts feeling like imprisonment. That idea completely changes how we should interpret the legacy. Most viewers see it as a vault containing secret knowledge passed from one leader to the next. But what if the legacy isn't simply preserving information? What if it's carefully deciding which information survives and which information disappears forever? Bernard doesn't possess unlimited knowledge. Even he seems surprised by revelations hidden within the system. Lucas enters the vault expecting answers, but instead discovers questions that shake everything Bernard believed. That tells us something incredibly important. The founders never wanted one person to know the whole truth. They compartmentalized knowledge, ensuring that every generation inherited only enough information to keep the system functioning, but never enough to challenge its original purpose. Even the leaders live inside a carefully controlled version of reality. And then there's Juliet. Every major discovery she makes comes from connecting fragments that were never supposed to exist in the same place. George leaves behind clues. Allison uncovers forbidden files. Holston dies searching for answers. Lucas begins seeing patterns in the stars. Bernard unknowingly reveals pieces of the legacy. Individually, none of these discoveries are enough to break the system. Together, they create something far more dangerous than a rebellion. They create continuity. That's the one thing the silo has been quietly preventing for centuries. Not conversation, not investigation, continuity. Because once knowledge survives from one generation to the next without being interrupted, the lie begins to unravel on its own. Look at how often the series emphasizes inheritance. Jobs are inherited, responsibilities are inherited, the pact is inherited. Even Bernard trains a shadow to inherit his role. Everything in the silo depends on carefully managed succession. So why wouldn't memory work the same way? The founders understood that civilizations aren't built from buildings or machines. They're built from stories passed between generations. Control the stories and you control the civilization. That may explain why relics are treated with such extraordinary fear. A relic isn't dangerous because it's old. It's dangerous because it allows someone to remember a story that wasn't approved by the system. Every photograph, children's toy, map, or handwritten journal becomes another thread connecting the present to a forgotten past. One thread means very little, thousands of threads woven together become history again. Now the parallels between Charlotte and Juliet become impossible to ignore. Whether Charlotte truly underwent deliberate memory manipulation or experienced another form of suppression remains one of the show's biggest unanswered questions. But both women follow the same path. They question official explanations. They uncover hidden truths. They move closer to understanding what the founders were trying to protect. The difference is that Juliet has something Charlotte may never have had: proof that the world is much larger than Silo 18. After surviving her cleaning and witnessing the neighboring silos, Juliet carries knowledge that can no longer be dismissed as rumor or conspiracy. She has seen it with her own eyes. That makes her memory far more dangerous than any relic ever hidden beneath a floorboard. And that may be the founders' greatest miscalculation. They built a system capable of suppressing information, destroying records, and controlling generations through carefully managed ignorance. But they never found a way to stop human curiosity. Every time someone hides the truth, someone else starts asking why it needed to be hidden in the first place. Every time history is erased, another person begins searching for what was lost. The silo isn't failing because its machines are breaking down. It's failing because the questions have finally become stronger than the answers the system was designed to provide. If Juliet succeeds in preserving not just the truth but the memory of that truth, then the founders won't simply lose control of one silo. They'll lose control of the very idea that has sustained their world for 352 years. And that's why Charlotte's story matters so much. Whether her memories were deliberately erased, fractured by trauma, or lost through some mechanism we still don't fully understand, she represents something the founders could never completely eliminate: the possibility that truth survives in fragments. One memory, one relic, one conversation, one person willing to ask one forbidden question. That's all it takes to begin rebuilding a history that was never supposed to exist. The real battle in Silo isn't between Mechanical and IT or Juliet and Bernard. It's between remembrance and forgetting. And if memory is the one thing the founders have feared all along, then Juliet's greatest weapon was never her engineering skills or her determination. It was her refusal to let the past stay buried.